welcome to the Divine Feminines podcast and channel. I'm your host, Steph Tassar, and in today's episode, I am talking about vulnerability and how to really tap into your vulnerability, because it is a power to help you really become your best self, become truly whole, and it is connected to your enlightenment, although it might seem like it's not. So I will share ways of how to really embrace vulnerability, what vulnerability really is, and why it is valuable, and why, being aware and conscious of it and working with vulnerability and being open to being vulnerable can play a major impact in your life for manifesting the best life, to be your best self, and to call in the most aligned experiences on your journey. And especially when you're manifesting and you want to bring in something, you need to stay open, and part of that does require a level of vulnerability, in my opinion, from personal experience. So I will share some personal things, but I will share some ways of you adopting certain values to become more vulnerable, and things to think about in yourself, to ask yourself. So I hope that that will be valuable for you. So before I get started, don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel. We're Divine Feminines on all major podcast platforms. That's Apple, Google, Spotify, and a ton of others. And we're also on Instagram and TikTok. That's Divine Feminines with a Z at the end. Why like and subscribe to this channel? Well, we've got everything for the ladies and the men, right? So it's for everyone. Even though we're called Divine Feminines, it's only really about bringing balance to your masculine and feminine energy. I talk how to become your best self, how to manifest the life of your dreams, live the life of your dreams, work with the lunar cycles, really talk about ways of removing fear and limiting thoughts and beliefs to really, just embody your true power, your true divine essence, and bring balance to that masculine and feminine. So let's get started. So vulnerability. I am going to do a little exercise here. So if you was to ask yourself, what are the top 3 words that come to your mind when the word vulnerability is said? The theme of vulnerability, what comes to mind? Let's pause. Okay, so you probably have a couple of thoughts coming to mind. I wouldn't be surprised if some of you are thinking weak, fragile, emotional, dramatic, sensitive. And so vulnerability, if you think about those words that came up, that I've just explained or expressed, they can also be perceived as quite negative or weak words that you kind of see as words that are not putting you in your power. So you'd probably be thinking, well, Steph, how do I, if I'm supposed to truly become whole and be in my power, then how does that work? Like, that doesn't make any sense. In order to do that, I need to be vulnerable, but vulnerability seems like it's a weakness, seems like you're just putting yourself out there for yourself to get shot down. And one of the best examples I can give is love. How many times have you guys been in a relationship? I'm not saying you've been in tons, but we all have gone through it, where we have to open our heart space, and I do believe open heart spaces is connected to vulnerability very much. We have to open our heart spaces and be open to a development of love if we really want to expand with someone and really embrace and enjoy something really beautiful. So in that, we are going in with any potential outcome. You could go in, you're keeping yourself open, you're keeping yourself ready to love, to be loved. You might have been hurt many a times before, but you're going to give it a shot, right? You really like this person, you're really feeling them, you feel like maybe there's actually already some forms of love, you're feeling that it's a spiritual connection, or whatever you want to call it, right? And you're ready to do this again. So in order to go there, you can't really ever embrace that moment and be in a receiving mode of new love and a co-creation with another of a special divine love if you're not vulnerable. So what does that mean? Well, being prepared to go in knowing that anything could happen, but not being afraid, like knowing that love is love, and love has ways of creating transformations, and we all meet people, souls, and some of them are, you know, they're a seasonal reason, right? So there's a reason for that season that they are in our life, and there is a contract playing out. But, you know, we probably can agree for around the table right now that many of us have gone into situations where we're like, yeah, I opened my heart space. Yeah, I was honest. I was really clear about my feelings. I was vulnerable. Like, basically, I showed emotion. I showed how I was feeling, what I want, that I was really interested. And then, things went well, and then they didn't. And then it kind of turned against me. Oh, it's because I opened my heart space, or I showed too much. You can never really show too much. Obviously, things have to have boundaries in respect to you and how you feel, but speaking truth is always going to be the number one divine vibration. Power is going to be the highest frequency. Frequency of truth is the highest, is up there with the frequency of love. And in order to love, we have to be in truth. In order to give, provide, be in our truth, we have to have love for ourselves before another. So yeah, vulnerability is core. It is core, and it is integral to being able to experience new expansion in ourselves, in a romantic connection. I'll give another example where, you're going into a new job, you're going into a new environment, and you're with new people. And there's a level of vulnerability that you go in because you don't know these guys, you don't know how they work, and you have to kind of let down your guard a bit. Obviously, you're like, oh, I don't want to be judged. It's my first rodeo here with these guys. I don't want them to think I'm not a good leader or a good manager or whatever it is that I'm doing. So I need to be a bit guarded. I get that. There's probably a level of boundaries that you need in place to kind of have, but you do need to let a barrier down. You do need to have some vulnerability. Why? Because then you can connect with others, then you can communicate truth, then you can really, if you're communicating your truth, you can get an exchange with others to start building and forging formidable relationships in order to do great work. So it might not be like sharing feelings, but being honest about what you think about the work and not holding certain things back, and being open for criticism, especially in the early days. I work with a new person right now, and they are fantastic in that they're aware of what vulnerability needs, and they're aware of themselves. And in their new sort of pursuit of their first few months, they're super senior, but they are also humble enough and able to really take a step back and go, wait, I also want to be better. So I'm going to be vulnerable, I'm going to do some work, but I'm going to ask critique of others. And I was one of them, and I was really, really happy to be part of that, actually, and for that space to be open to me, because then I was like, well, actually, this person's being really vulnerable in terms of some of the first pieces of work that they're doing. They don't really have to show it to me because I'm not their boss, I'm a peer, but I actually really feel that brings us closer together. I understand what he or she's trying to do, and actually it can help me in the work that I'll be doing with them, and also I can maybe provide some support, whatever that might look like, right? So the vulnerability can span anything. It can be in our personal relationships, it can be in professional, it can be in family, it can be in romantic. But first, it's about being vulnerable with ourselves, being able to allow ourselves to be soft, to be open. And like, people would say, oh, but if you're vulnerable and you're open, then you're exposing yourself to be shut down, to be like ridiculed at, to be attacked. No, because if you've got boundaries in place and you've got a good sense of yourself, of who you are, then when you are actually doing these sort of intentions, these gestures of being vulnerable and showing up, if something comes back and it's not as positive, or someone's response is not as great, you shouldn't really feel moved in any way. You've still got your center point, you're still whole in yourself. And that's when you really truly are whole, because you're not subject to what anyone else says. Okay, so everyone's like, well, enlightenment and vulnerability, they don't go together, do they? Well, what do you mean? Enlightenment, well, Steph, enlightenment's really about really clearing the mind, really having a connection to the higher self, and really just stepping into a sense of higher consciousness. But vulnerability puts you in the firing line of, being susceptible to other things, other energies, since it can make you very sensitive. Well, not exactly, because enlightenment is, yes, a way of finding your higher self, connecting to your higher self, and embodying a higher frequency. But in order to get there, you need to know yourself. It's not a matter of, enlightenment does not come to those that just sit there and meditate. I mean, you could meditate every day, but I'm saying it's not a matter of, I'm going to meditate for every day for the next 90 days or the next 6 months or whatever it is, and I'm going to get to a state of enlightenment. There is other work that needs to be done. There needs to be the shadow work, there needs to be the self-discovery, there needs to be the self-development, there needs to be the self-awareness. And in vulnerability, there is a key entity of self-awareness that plays a role. And so if we're guarded all the time, and we cannot have vulnerable moments with ourselves to accept what's going on with me or with another, how can we reach a state of enlightenment where we feel centered and untouched by what's going on around us and connected to our divine force? See what I mean? See where I'm going with that? You're like, are you still with me? So, look, I want to just share some things that I think are really useful in terms of adopting values that can help you get more vulnerable. And look, I will say this out loud. I'll say it as a disclaimer that if you are, going through a recent heartbreak or something really sort of quite tragic has happened, and you feel that your heart space is closed and you're feeling a bit sort of beside yourself and stuff like that, then what I'm sharing is something to consider as you start to transmute the energy and as you start to heal and, heal the heart and allow the heart to open. So where is a good starting point? How does your heart feel right now? Does it feel upset? Does it feel distraught? Does it feel hurt? And if it does, then trying to adopt these ways of vulnerability might be a bit challenging. You might feel like you're contradicting yourself. So I really would advise on doing activities and connection to your heart space, to open your heart space, whether you're seeing a healer, whether you're doing a cacao ceremony, some sound healing, some meditation, seeking, an energy guidance from, someone you can trust that will help provide some areas of where those wounds are coming from. Because usually when the heart space closes, it closes maybe from a recent event, maybe there's a heartbreak, maybe there's a letdown, but then it stems to a more ancient, a more deeply rooted piece of trauma that could be from childhood, that could be passed down through your family lineage, that you could have witnessed through your parents. So there is a more deeply rooted theme, and so you will need some facilitation or some time to journal. So just be kind to yourself, have compassion with yourself. But when you're feeling like, I've been feeling much more open, because I'll give you an example of a closed heart space. Someone's been heartbroken, stuff happened, and then they've got this, women do it a lot. They're like, I hate all men. I don't trust a man ever again. And that is a really defensive energy and a very closed heart space. There's a lot of trauma there as well. So, and there's a lot of distortion. So that's just one example, but there's many others that manifest, whether it's like to do with work and you're like, I can't trust certain people. Don't get me wrong, you have to be strategic when you're doing business and you're doing work and stuff like that, and you need to have, guardrails in place and things in place to make sure that you're doing things in a legitimate and ethical way, and in a practical way that is going to drive success. At the same time, you need to have a level of openness to those colleagues, to those partners, to be able to develop what you need to develop or build or deliver on. So here's a bunch of enlightened values for vulnerability. of where you can really embrace being vulnerable and try them out, see what you think. But to love and respect, so the first one I'd say is to really love and respect yourself. You need to ask what you need. I know it sounds really simple, but it's like, what do I need? Steph, what do I need? In any given moment. And if, don't suppress your voice. If you're feeling distraught, you're feeling some type of way, ask yourself, what is it that I need right now? Like, don't just like go, oh, I'm feeling in a funny mood, and then just let it, it's just going to ride, because you probably have done that a load of times. But no, stop yourself and ask yourself, what is that really? Okay? And then try to go from there. And that's a good way of really not closing yourself down, shutting yourself down, but trying to open yourself up, being vulnerable with yourself. The next one is number 2, giving back, offering. So not compulsively to prove a point or, but when it's time to give, share and unfold without bitterness or dis-ease or discomfort. So there's a moment where, you need to give feedback, or it's a moment where you feel like I need to say something. Speak up, say something, offer, just give back a certain level of energy, so it's not being kind of shared with you and you're just sitting there with it and not really engaging. You'll know. And if you're feeling a bit uncomfortable, that's probably because you're holding yourself back as well from doing it. So that's another thing. So yeah, like I said, go easy on yourself. The next one is never play emotional games. And I'm sure you all agree, but sometimes we don't realise that we're playing emotional games. Why? I used to do this a lot. I used to get in my ego, and when I'd be dating someone in the past, and they were being some type of way, or their shadow was doing some very shadowy things, and they were being really weird, I wanted to kind of find a way to like upset them or get revenge or, and that was my ego, right? Old version of myself, but it's not going to get you anywhere. So emotional games, don't play them. And try to recognize that, just try to adopt the value of straightforwardness. Be honest. So like, if you're seeing someone and all of a sudden they are not communicating and you haven't heard from them, and it's basically ghosting. And I always say this, some people say, oh, to avoid an argument, it's avoiding toxicity, but being silent can be also toxic. So if you notice something and you feel like, wait a minute, what's going on, you don't have to have a big argument. You just have to express, look, hey, you've gone really quiet, or I haven't heard from you, or you've not given me your feedback on this project. Can I have it? Or you've not inputted into this piece. Is there something going on? Because I need your input. The team needs your contribution, whatever it is. And express what you feel to be true in that speech. I feel like you've gone really quiet, and so I need to speak up and just ask, is everything okay? Like, what's going on? Can we have a chat? Or I feel like you've not really been present on this project or this piece of work we're doing. So, and that's your truth. And that will keep you centered, grounded, and in your free energy. It's a great place to be in, right? The next one, numero cuatro, is just be a good person, be a good human, Far too often we just kind of get into this space of, I don't know, we just get too caught up with ourselves and what's going on in our life. And, and that shouldn't stop us from being a good human, right? But we can really forget that just being kind, it doesn't hurt to be kind, it doesn't hurt to be nice, right? It's a lovely thing that we can do and share with others. So why not, right? Literally, why not? Just be a good human, be kind, be a happy human, and whatever that is to make you feel happy, do it. Do you know what I mean? Do whatever it is to make you feel happy. Do whatever it is that's going to make you just be able to like vibrate in the energy and in the frequency that keeps you, if that makes sense. The next one's about not pretending to be a superhuman. A lot of us are trying to do everything, trying to do the most, right? And sometimes we just need to accept that that's not possible. It's just not going to work. Like, we need to take a step back, you know. We need to try to just be real with ourselves. So if we're trying to show up and be like, yeah, I can do this, I can do that, I can do that, and blah, 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 and we're just depleting ourselves, and we're trying to also impress everyone, that is also the opposite of vulnerable. Vulnerability allows you to really just be real about what you can and can't do, and not feel that that's a weakness. And actually, by sharing your truth, it's not that you're in fear, but it's you're trying to forge a better connection with others because you know yourself. The next one, number 6, is like listening to what your body needs, and not having shame for what that is, you know. And so your body might need rest, take the rest. Your body wants exercise, go and get the exercise. Your body just doesn't want to be around other people. Allow yourself to be vulnerable enough so that you can hear what your body's saying. Not this. It's not always about this. Not about the mind, but try to listen to your heart space and your body, basically. You know, and when you are vulnerable, when you are open, you can feel fatigued, you know, and you can feel like, wow, like, and when you know, when you're doing it, right, from personal experience, when you are vulnerable and you're very sort of open and others aren't, you can feel even more fatigued. Why? Because like your energy is really carrying and leading a lot of others to learn from you, and little do you realize. So that can be quite depleting. So, you know, just make sure that you just don't overdo it. Like, get the rest, get the mental rest. Sometimes when I'm in groups of a lot of people, after not being around many work people, I need to just shut myself away. It can be quite draining for me. So just think about what that it looks like for you. Number 8 is no longer subscribing and accepting abuse. And that can be anything, whether it's any kind of abuse, you know, under a belief system, a family system, a society system, a cultural system, religious, moral, karmic, or otherwise, abuse from others, whatever it is, like a judge mental type frame that's being put on you in any way, or an expectation, just don't subscribe to it. If it doesn't make you feel good, don't try to hold on anymore to it. Allow yourself to be vulnerable in knowing that that don't feel right and it's not for me, right? So I hope that helps. And number 9 is being your own caretaker of your vulnerable human self. So allowing your higher self, your connection to your divine force, your divine energy through your enlightenment, to allow a recognition to your human self and the vulnerability that your human self has. So, you know, whether that's like being able, setting a boundary, saying no, saying yes in other instances, but value the no and the yes. And I think, you know, us divine feminines, we are very sort of giving, we're very nurturing, we're very much leaders, but we have to have no's in that. We can't, you know, the distorted feminine would overgive completely. The divine feminine knows her balance, but as more and more she interacts with others, or her energy is embraced, more wanted. And so she can't always be in that position of giving, or doing. And in other instances, she might want to really do something and has held herself back, or you've held yourself back. Why? If you look at your true self and your feelings, because your feelings are your indication, right? As long as you're not in the height of like a really emotional, distressing moment, then when you allow yourself to calm down, what that feeling feels like is your truth, right? And the final one, despite all the light that you may embody, you know, you're still going to get moments that you get scared. You know, as much as you get into like more enlightened states and all of that good stuff, you're still going to get scared. You're still going to have moments where things are going to be like, oh, and actually as you expand, there'll be more and more. Like, it's not like, it might get easier over time, of course it does, but there'll be more and more, you know, and that's not going to go anywhere. So you have to allow yourself to go, do you know what, that's fine, I get it, I'm scared, and there's nothing wrong with being scared. There's nothing wrong with having fear in this situation. So I am going to allow that to just wash over me. I'm going to just breathe and allow this to sort of pass through, and be kind to myself throughout all of that. So those were my 10 sort of ways to embrace your vulnerability in your life, and to allow yourself to be more vulnerable, in knowing that vulnerability is actually you being a more authentic self, your more honest self, and being more truthful to yourself, so that you can show up more open and to receive and expand and manifest the life of your dreams. So with that being said, I'm going to love you and leave you. I hope that this helped. Sending you lots of love and light on this beautiful, beautiful day. Take care. So I'll try and I'll see you again next time. Bye.